Welcome to Lighten the Legal Career Path. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. Whether you're a new attorney looking for inspiration or guidance, or further along in your career, wondering how to get to the next level, or someone that's just simply curious about the legal world, you're in the right place. We'll be talking to female and BIPOC attorneys not only about their remarkable stories of success, but the challenges they've faced along the way, the lessons they've learned, and their valuable insights about their career and the road ahead.
My name is Shardé Skahan. I am an employment law partner at Cypress Shaw in Century City in Los Angeles, and I currently serve as the 50th president of Black Women Lawyers Association of Los Angeles. My practice is comprised of single plaintiff litigation and all types of counseling to employees, including pay equity, DEI, and accommodations.
Hi, this is Erica Moore-Burton, president and founder of Roundhill Legal Search here in Los Angeles. And I'm excited to speak to our guest today, Shardé Skahan. Shardé is the current president of the Black Women Lawyers Association in Los Angeles and a partner at Cypress Shaw here in Los Angeles. I'm excited to explore this conversation with you today. We're having a focus on the courage to lead. So welcome, Shardé, and thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So we're exploring the concept of the courage to lead. First, before we dive into that, I would love to hear from you. I want to hear just about your career to date. Just give us an overview so our listeners know who you are, what you've done, and what an impressive background you have as well.
Yes, definitely. So I am originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I graduated from University of Minnesota Law School. After that, I made my way out to California, where a couple of my siblings lived at the time and still live, and began searching for jobs. When I moved out to California, I didn't actually have a job. I just had an internship, which of course is not permanent. And from there, I secured my first law firm job in Los Angeles and have worked in employment law ever since.
Awesome. So tell us that was going to be one of my questions for you, like how did you end up here in California from Minnesota? But you just explained that quite nicely. So tell us a little bit about how you secured your first role here.
Of course. So I was living in San Diego at the time, and I was looking for jobs in the Bay Area where my older brother was living, or in Los Angeles where my younger sister was living. And since I didn't know a lot of people, especially in the legal community out here, since I did not go to a local law school, I decided, let me reach out to someone at Black Women Lawyers of Los Angeles. At least I can meet a few people and start networking. So I reached out to the then president of BWL, Camille Townsend Granville, and she introduced me for just an informational interview at a firm that she used to work at.
Excellent.
So they didn't have any postings at the time. I went in for my informational interview and I ended up getting hired for a job.
That's excellent. And that is testament to the power of networking as well, and reaching out to people and just having conversations about what's going on out there in the legal industry. And one thing led to another and you landed that job. That's great. So why don't we start there? So you are currently the 50th president of the Black Women Lawyers Association. Prior to becoming president, you were the vice president. Now, as we explore this concept of the courage to lead, tell us a little bit about your journey within the organization to VP and now to president in its 50th year as well, right?
Yes, that's right. So when I joined the BWL board, I really had just joined for the sense of community. Of course, my first interaction with the board was very positive since they helped me secure my first job. But I really just wanted to get to know people, get more involved. And I've always been kind of a volunteer throughout my life. I like volunteering to contribute to various causes and to join teams. And I like that teamwork aspect and camaraderie. So I joined the board, not envisioning that I'd one day be president, but instead just that I would meet people on the board and meet other people in the organization and get to know people better. But throughout my time on the board, I just continue to get a lot of value out of my participation and see how much value it brought to everyone else's lives, from local law students to new grads, even to people who were in the process of trying to become a judge. There's just a lot of different things that BWL had to offer, and I really appreciated that people could come as they were and get support from friends, get career advice, etc. So that's kind of why I joined the board and then ended up staying on the board. And then I got to a certain point where I had been on the board for a long time where I kind of had to make a decision. Am I going to run for president, or do I want to kind of take a step back from the board? Because at
Mm,
that point I had been in a lot of different positions on the board. So there weren't many left that I hadn't held. And I decided that I would run for vice president, and then from there I ran for president elect. And then
mm.
after president elect, I became president. And I had the support of my husband, who's an attorney as well, to take on this position because leadership roles, especially in an organization like BWL, do take up a significant amount of time. So you
Right.
get a lot of value personally from it, but also it is a time commitment as well.
Got it. What was your thought process as you were making that decision? Because obviously, when we talk about the courage to lead, it takes a lot to step up into a leadership role. What was your thought process behind it? What were, as you weighed up the pros and cons of doing so?
I felt that I had contributed a lot of time and effort to making the organization great, or continue to be great at least, as far as how much they were contributing to local law students and the community as a whole. And I had some other ideas myself of ways that I thought I could provide added value to the organization. We've had a lot of really amazing presidents in the past in BWL, and each president kind of has their own goal of what they want to see for the organization. So for me, my goal was I really want to hone in on people who want to become lawyers who might not be exposed to any lawyers
Mm-hmm.
um, in their lives. Some of us, we are exposed to lawyers or judges or doctors or people in other careers, and then others, especially with middle school students, high school students, they don't know any lawyers, so they don't even know what
Right.
it means to be a lawyer. And I think if you don't have that kind of exposure, it's hard for you to envision yourself in that position.
Absolutely. Did you have that exposure growing up?
My aunt was a judge, and so that was kind of my first intro to law. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
have an understanding of what she did as a judge until I participated in a program that was intended to introduce minority high school students to the practice of law. So
Got
from
it.
there, I got to see the ins and outs. We did a mock court, got to visit more courtrooms, meet more judges, and that's kind of what sparked my interest in being a lawyer in the first place.
Got it. Great, great. So what do you think right now in your leadership role? You're sort of standing from a different perspective, looking at this legal landscape in 2025. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing Black female lawyers today?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges that always come with being a minority, I think, in any position, but especially being a Black female lawyer right now. Of course, with the executive orders on DEI, that has brought some challenges to the space that minority or affinity bar organizations operate in,
Mm-hmm.
and what level of support that we're able to obtain. So I think one of the main challenges for us is making sure that people know all of the great work that we continue to do, the work that we do in the community. And
Mm-hmm.
we're not just an organization that hangs out or has parties, but we give back to the community and we really contribute in meaningful ways. And I think that that's really important for us to communicate, and also just to let law students know that this community is still here to support them on their journey to becoming a lawyer. And same with other Black female lawyers in the legal profession in LA.
Got it. And you've alluded to it a little bit. In the recruitment world, my team, we come across individuals, young Black female lawyers that still aren't part of this organization. And I think it's crucial from the inception of your sort of legal career to be a part of an organization like this. Can you speak a little bit as to why it's so important to belong as well?
Definitely. So it's really important to become part of an organization like BWL because there's a lot of different things that you can get out of it. It's networking, it's support from people that have encountered similar situations to you at work. It's just making new friends and having fun and commiserating about being lawyers. So whenever I meet any Black female lawyer in LA, I always try to recruit her to join BWL, because some people just might not know who we are and they don't know
Right.
that we're out here to join this group. And then others, I think there's a little bit of probably nervousness if you don't
Yes.
know anyone else who's in the group, and you're going to have to go into a setting where you have to meet new people, some of whom already know each other pretty well. And we are a really welcoming group, so I try to encourage new people that all they have to do is come to an event or come to a meeting, and you'll meet other people. It doesn't take long. We like to bring other people into the fold. So there's a lot of professional growth that you can get from an organization like this too, because like I alluded to before, we have a lot of different types of members. We have law students, we have in-house attorneys, we have law firm attorneys, people who own their own business, we have judges. So whatever career path you think you want to take, there's also an opportunity for you to meet other people who have done it before, and you can kind of pick their brain, find out how they got there, the pros, the cons, and if you have any questions about whether you truly want to go down that path or just how to do it, you can meet someone in BWL who's done that. And from those connections, you can form a nice relationship, and hopefully that'll help you get to where you're wanting to go.
Absolutely. And just to echo what you said, also, it's also about sort of self leadership, the courage for self leadership to sort of put yourself out in these environments. I have a team of recruiters, and I always say to them, go out to these networking events. Don't go with somebody you know. Actually, go on your own and make it a goal to meet 5 new people that you haven't met yet. And that obviously also increases your confidence, but once you do that, you can open up a whole new world. So for anyone listening right now that isn't a part of this organization, I challenge you to go and meet some of these amazing women that are a part of this organization. So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk to you about your role and journey to partnership at Safe Offshore. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how partnership came about for you, and whether you felt you were ready or not at the time when it did?
Yes, I'm a really goal oriented person. So to me, having partnership on my list of goals was just something that I had. It wasn't, it was something that I worked towards. I didn't just kind of fall into the position one day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of preparation that goes to you becoming a partner. One thing on my journey was that I also had a lot of really great mentors and sponsors throughout the process. And in general, I think that that's important for anyone at any stage of their career. And you don't have to be at a law firm going up for partner. You can be working in house or working in another career format. But having a mentor and sponsor who will support you and also give you honest feedback, I found to be really important. So when I was going up for partner, I definitely leaned heavily on my mentor and sponsor to give me advice on my partnership memo, because at Cyfarth we prepare a memo to explain to the partnership committee how we're prepared for partner and what would make us a good partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also try to meet as many people as I could to make sure that they knew who I was. Um, One thing that I think women don't do as much is try to promote themselves. And I think sometimes that's very necessary to move
Mm-hmm.
forward. You don't always get to where you want to go if you just wait for someone to sit and acknowledge you.
Absolutely.
And it can be a little uncomfortable. That doesn't really come naturally for me. I'm like I mentioned, I'm from the Midwest, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not something that we typically do.
Right.
So it was a little uncomfortable for me to try to talk to people and explain who I am and what I do. But a lot of it was me just trying to make sure that I could show them what I had to offer professionally and do good work for their clients.
Mm-hmm.
So then they would think of me for more work, and also think when they saw my memo come across their desk, oh, I know this person, I've worked with her, she's definitely ready to be a partner. So having a lot of positive interactions with people and just being a nice person as well, I think
Yeah,
is really
yeah.
important. If you're going to make partner with all these other people, they want to know that you are someone that they enjoy working with and enjoy spending time with. So that was a really important piece as well. Ask them about their lives, their families, what they like to do on the weekend. It's not just all business, because we are normal people that have other interests aside from just being lawyers.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I want to make a distinction. You mentioned mentor sponsor. Some of our listeners might not know the distinction between the two. Can you delve a little bit deeper into that, into your mentor versus sponsor, and what roles they took on for you in this process?
My mentor took a more active role, and I feel like more regular guidance and feedback that was being provided on what I was doing, what I should do next to achieve my goals, who they thought it would be good for me to meet. So I think that role was a little bit more hands on and mentoring and just providing regular advice for
Mm-hmm.
any questions that I had that came up. The sponsor is similar, but the sponsor is also in a very high profile or high power position, such that they also have a lot of influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that the mentor doesn't have a lot of influence, because my mentor also happened to be a very influential person, but the sponsor had a high level role such that they could make sure that I get on the radar of really important people, and that they give me time on their calendar for a meeting, or that they know who I am. And if he was in an important meeting or discussion, he was able to sing my praises to them as
Mm-hmm.
someone who has a seat at the table.
Right.
And it's really important to have a sponsor for that reason, because you need someone with a seat at the table who is in the room and can speak your name so people know who you
Absolutely.
are.
They can advocate for you when you're not there.
Exactly.
And how did you find that sponsor? Did it happen organically, or did you seek out somebody and ask them to be your sponsor? How did that come about?
So at Cypherth, we have a program that is for high achieving senior associates who are getting close to making partner. So I participated in that program, and in that program, we're assigned mentors and sponsors. And then I've also had other mentors and sponsors that were outside of that program, and those were relationships that kind of just developed organically. That I got to
Mm-hmm.
know people, we connected, they took an interest in me, and it kind of developed from there. One thing that I wanted to note, though, that I think is really important is that as Black women lawyers, oftentimes we're looking for someone who looks just like us to serve
Yes.
in those roles. And
Mm-hmm.
that there's such a small percentage of Black women lawyers that are practicing, you aren't always going to find a mentor or sponsor who looks like you. So some of mine have been Black women lawyers, but
Mm-hmm.
others have not been.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't discount someone who you have a genuine connection with, or who genuinely wants to help you, just
Mm-hmm.
because they don't look like you.
Yeah, that's so important that you highlight that point, because I think that um, we can be a little parochial sometimes in our outlook in what these people, what our mentors even need to look like as well. There's something that you can learn from somebody that doesn't look like you as well. So that was such an important point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. And everyone brings a different perspective, which I think is also important. That's why diversity, equity, and inclusion is such a big thing, because
Mm-hmm.
having diversity of thought and of insight helps you, because maybe someone who doesn't look like you and doesn't have the same experiences can provide you with other information that you might not have thought of before.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a really key takeaway here. So you mentioned something, and I chuckled to myself because being born and raised in the UK, we don't brag a lot about ourselves as Brits. And my husband is American, and he would always say to me, "This is America, Erica. You got to put yourself out there. You got to tell people how good you are." And it's always a little bit of a cringe factor for me. So you talked just now about being from Minnesota and coming here and having to put yourself out there. How did you get past that discomfort that rears its head sometimes when it comes to, you know, touting your accomplishments and what you've done, and really and putting yourself out there. How did you get past that?
I don't know that I could truthfully even say that I'm past it because it still happens to me somewhat frequently. I don't love talking about myself or my accomplishments. I love lifting others up. I'm
Yes.
really good at that. If I have a friend who's done something great, I am happy to shout it from the rooftops, but it doesn't come naturally for me to do it about myself. And so it does take active effort for
Mm-hmm.
me to say that it's okay for me to mention something good that I've done. People will be happy for you. People want to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Also, if you need help with something, no one can help you if they don't know what you need help with. So
Absolutely.
you have to be a little bit more explicit if you want help or you want support at anything that you are doing. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I come from. And so many mentors throughout the time have mentioned to me, you have to talk about what you're doing and we want to
Yeah.
know also what you're doing as well. So I consistently actively work on that all the time of reminding myself that I need to promote a little bit.
Good. And I'm very, very similar. The way I kind of come around it sometimes is think about, okay, what's the impact here? What's the impact? Who can I impact if they knew XYZ? So I think that's nice, refreshing to hear that you're still working on that, and that you have tools. So talk to us about what some of the practices that have helped you build resilience in sort of this high pressure environment that you are in. You're currently in employment law, litigation as well, which I know that can be sort of high pressure sometimes. What are some of the tools that you have in your toolbox that you can share with us?
I am generally, I think, a pretty calm, level headed person. So I think resilience to a certain extent comes naturally to me. I was brought up by two hardworking parents that always taught the importance to us of working hard and caring about other people. And so I think from that lens, it just kind of taught me to work hard. I
Mm-hmm.
have three siblings who are also very high achieving individuals. And so there's a level of competition there as well that we all need to do our best. And our parents worked hard to get us to where we are today. But I think, too, in employment law and especially being in litigation, that I kind of just bring my own personality to it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, I think, when they become lawyers, especially litigators, they think that they have to be really aggressive or really angry
Mm-hmm.
or rude to the opposing side. And that's just not how I practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to maintain professionalism and maintain calm and just be true to my own personality because people can see right through you if you're pretending to be something that you're not. And
Right.
so if I try to approach litigation in that way, it would just seem very disingenuous.
Got it.
So that's kind of how I approach it. I don't know if that quite answered your question.
Yeah, and in terms of practices, so day to day, it can be a high pressure environment. Are there any um, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly practices that you actually put in place to help you manage the environment?
Yes. So outside of work, I like to work out. That's kind of my stress reliever. I
Mm-hmm.
have two young kids, so there's a lot
That is
going
the
on.
workout.
Right. Exactly. There's a lot going on in my life. So I like to get some exercise, even if it's just getting outside for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
A few of my coworkers and I, we take an afternoon walk a couple times a week when we're in the office, just
Nice.
around Century City. But at home too, I try to make time for things that are going to relax me or bring value to my life. So something that my family and I do is we'll do what we call our family runs.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter rides her bike, my son's being pushed in the stroller, and then my husband and I are running with them. And that way I'm getting some time for myself to clear my head while I'm exercising, but then I'm also getting to spend time with my family. And that's kind of the most valuable thing to me, is making sure that I'm present for my kids, even though I work hard or have a busy schedule. So I have to be very intentional, I find, about implementing these practices.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a hard copy planner that I still live by. I'm maybe the
Old
only
school
millennial
still.
who
No,
still
I do
uses.
too. I do too.
I love my Google Calendar, but there's something about having it on paper that you can see it, you can
Yep.
cross it off, that that is crucial to me maintaining some semblance of balance as well.
Wonderful. Well, now that you've sort of opened that door, let's talk about a little bit about that. When a lot of females are sort of early in their career and they aspire to partnership, they can't fathom how they can have it and do it all, right? They can have the partner, have the kids, have the high-powered career as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about motherhood, how that shifted your career, if at all, and how you managed to balance it all now?
Yes, motherhood definitely changed, I think, my outlook and view on things and on my career in general. Becoming a mom, since your time gets even more limited, I think
Mm-hmm.
makes you extremely efficient.
Yes.
So a lot of employers should want to hire working moms because we are really efficient because we have to be.
Yeah.
And it also just put things into perspective for me. So before, if I had a stressful day or a call with an opposing attorney, it'd be a huge damper on my day, and I might sit and dwell on it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But now having kids, it really does put everything into perspective of, this is just a small blip in my
Mm-hmm.
day or in my week. So you can be upset about it for a little bit, feel your feelings if you need to, but then you need to move on to the next thing,
Right.
because there's always something else that's going on, or you don't want to take that energy home to your kids. So it helps me compartmentalize a little bit better, and also just put everything into perspective about what's important, what really matters. And I think that that is one of the biggest changes that I experienced when becoming a mom. It's not easy, of course, to be
No.
a working mom. There's a lot to balance, but I would not change it for the world.
Did your definition of, I know you said you always wanted to be a partner. Did your definition of success change at all?
I don't think it did, to be honest, because I had these career goals, and then I had separate life goals as
Got it.
well. So I always knew that I wanted to be a mom. I always knew that I wanted to be an involved parent.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't change my goals necessarily. But when I started actually implementing my familial goals and my motherhood goals, it just changed my outlook, because there's no way to understand what being a parent is like until you're actually in it.
Right.
So even if I witnessed my friends who had kids before me and they were working parents as well, and I thought I understood, I didn't truly
Right.
understand until I was in it. So I think that was the biggest change.
Yeah, you never do. You never understand what it is to be a mother until it actually happens. And nobody can explain it to you either.
Right.
Nobody can explain it to you. And I love that we're having this conversation about managing both motherhood and this, your career as well. I saw a cartoon in a magazine just yesterday, actually, of the two women hugging each other, and two professional women, and they in this tagline, what they were crying because they'd forgotten to have children, right? And and I was just like, oh gosh, it's so sad, because that myth is still out there that it's either one or the other, and you don't get to do both, with your life, type sort of thing. So I love that we're having this conversation right now. And on that, what is a myth about being a working mother, specifically in the legal profession, that you would love to bust as well?
A myth that I would like to bust is that a working mom lawyer can't be as good of a lawyer as someone who doesn't have kids. Because, like I mentioned before, working moms are
We're so
really
efficient.
efficient.
Yes.
And we're powerful, and it's a hard job. Being a parent is sometimes harder than having a disagreement with opposing counsel.
Right.
So I think that's a myth that I'd like to bust, that working moms can be just as good of lawyers as they were before they even had kids.
Excellent. Perfect. So let's go back to talking about sort of the courage to lead. I know we've touched upon it. I want to hear about a decision that you made in your sort of career to date that changed the trajectory of your life and career.
I think the biggest decision really was my decision to move to Los Angeles to work,
Mm-hmm.
because when I first moved out here, I studied for the bar in San Diego with my husband, and I was really focusing on the Bay Area. I wasn't focusing much on LA, even though my sister was there, so I had one connection there, because I didn't know that much about Los Angeles in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to just spread my wings a little further and apply to both places. But it's funny how one decision can make such a huge impact in your life.
Yeah.
Because if I had completely ignored Los Angeles and only focused on the Bay Area, my life would look completely different right now.
Right.
So I am a very strong believer in everything kind of happens for a reason. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason I ended up getting a job in Los Angeles instead of in the Bay Area, and have now built a community with a lot of great friends down here. And that is kind of a huge turning point, I think, in my career and my life, was deciding to apply to jobs down in LA as well.
Wonderful. Where does that sort of that courage come from? I mean, everybody has to exercise it at some point in their life. You would hope there are people that don't exercise it, but where does for you, where do you get courage from? Where does it come from for you? And are there any sort of things that you tell yourself, or what's your practice when you need a bit of courage? I'll laugh about this because just this week I was talking to my team and said to them, sometimes you just need to exercise 10 seconds of courage to start something,
Mm-hmm.
and that 10 seconds can set you on a trajectory to so many wonderful things, but you just have to start with 10 seconds. What does it come down to for you?
It comes down to something that I think my mom would always tell me, and this is kind of also my favorite piece of advice from her, is she would always say, the worst they can say is no.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, it was always, why don't you just ask, see what happens? Maybe someone says no, and that's fine. People might have different reasons for saying no. Maybe it's not the right time, you're not the right
Mm-hmm.
fit, or it's not the right person. But if you don't ask, you never know, and sometimes you'll be surprised that you ask someone something and they will say yes, or
Right.
you apply for a job and you think that you're underqualified and you get the position. So if you don't try, then nothing's going to happen. So I think that's really where it comes from, that I say that a lot, that the worst they can say is no. And I tell myself that sometimes too. If I'm doing something and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, I just repeat to myself, well, if they say no, that's fine.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. What would you say to associates that are listening to this and aspire to partnership? What advice would you give them about, number one, about that aspiration, and in preparation for it? What advice would you impart?
I would tell young associates or even law students who are listening and thinking that they want to be a partner, is to first focus on figuring out how to do the work. Because if you come into a position and in your mind, I'm here because I want to make partner, that's my goal. Well, you can't
Mm-hmm.
make partner if you aren't a good lawyer or you aren't a good employee or colleague.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on that. You can have that as your ultimate goal, of course, but focus on, how can I be a team player? How can I become a good employee? What what things can I learn to differentiate myself? Can I become a subject matter expert in something
Mm-hmm.
so I can build a strong profile? So figure out kind of long term how you can set yourself up. I think a lot of people get nervous about learning something new, and in employment law, things change so frequently, and there's so many nuances within
Mm-hmm.
the field of employment law, that you can become an expert in a lot of different things within employment law. You can just pick something that you want to focus on, and that can be your thing. And then people will come to you when they have a question because they know that you've developed this expertise. So that's another good way to set yourself up for partnership, is make yourself indispensable.
Right. Right, that's great. And going back to one of our other episodes with Sarah Rosenbroll, Kroll Rosenbroll, where she talked about, she is in employment law as well, but she's specializing with staffing firms specifically. So she is now becoming that go-to person. So that's really crucial and really, really good advice there. Um, let's go a little bit deeper into that. What would your advice be to specifically young black women who, in this climate today, are sort of wondering about ability or worthiness to be at the table to even climb that ladder to partnership as well? What advice would you give for those quietly doubting themselves?
Definitely to remember that you worked hard to get to where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's based on merit. You didn't get to where you are for any other reason except for the fact that you worked hard, or you had the grades, or you networked and met the right people to get to your position. So don't think that you don't belong at the table or in the room, because you belong there just as much as everyone else. And then also, I think it's really important to remember to build a community. The
Mm-hmm.
legal profession is very small.
It
You,
is.
even though in Los Angeles, which is a big city, you run into the same people all the time. Maybe it's at court, maybe it's at a networking event. So be nice to people
Yeah.
and build a community. And that also can make the networking events more fun because you can run into other people that you know. But it's easy sometimes to feel like the sky is falling if you get disenchanted with certain things that you might read about or that you think are going on. But building that community is helpful because it can give you some perspective
Mm-hmm.
of things really are going pretty well, or I am doing a good job at this, or maybe I do need to leave this job and find something else that's a better fit. But having the community instead of being in your head about it, I think is really important to being a practicing lawyer, especially as a Black female lawyer.
Absolutely. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. As the president and founder of Round Hill Legal Search, I've spent over 2 decades connecting with incredible attorneys day in and day out. I decided it was high time that we share some of their remarkable stories, lessons, insights, and inspiration with the world. Join us as we have wonderful conversations with our guests, or simply a session talking about some career tips, advice for you as you light your own legal career path. I think it's really important. You said, not to be in your head about it, not to be at home about it. I don't know if you are on a hybrid schedule right now, or what the situation is with your firm. We recently came out with a white paper talking about the tug of war between younger associates wanting to be at home, right, to work from home versus going into the office. And now you have this call from law firms saying, come back into the office more often. But the one piece of advice I've been trying to give younger attorneys is get into the office, be around people. When you're in the office, don't stay behind closed doors, because I think that we're dealing with a generation of lawyers that really came up through the pandemic, so they're used to being at home. So speak to that a little bit for me as well, and what your thoughts are on that.
I can definitely see that. I have a hybrid schedule, so part at home and part in the office. And to me, that is actually a really good balance because I don't like being at home by myself all the
Mm-hmm.
time. Maybe it's because I grew up with three siblings and I never had a quiet place.
Right.
So I like to be around people. But it's nice to be at home too because you're not spending time on your commute. Maybe that time you would have been commuting, you can get a little extra work done or get that workout in or start dinner a little bit earlier than usual. So I like having the balance, but especially coming in too because there's something different that you can do at the office that you won't do at home. And that's just stopping into a colleague's office to chit chat with
Yeah.
them, the normal office chatter that you're not going to call someone on their phone if you're both working remotely and
Right.
just randomly decide to chat. But if you're walking and you see them sitting in their office, you're going to stop and say hi. And then you might talk about how their day is going, if they did something fun on the weekend, and you can develop other relationships that way. So it is nice to be in the office and be able to just chat with your colleagues or bounce some ideas off of them.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think people do it as much at home. Maybe if you're fully remote, you might, but I don't think people do it as much at home, that if they have just a quick question that they might think is quote unquote a dumb question, that they're going to run it by one of their colleagues. But if you can just stop by their office and say, I was thinking about doing this, or I'm having this issue in my kids, what do you think? You're a lot more likely to have that conversation than if you have to call them and talk through
Schedule a
that.
Zoom call to have that. Yeah, you're just
Exactly.
not going to do it, basically.
Everyone's so scheduled now.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. As you think about sort of the path ahead for you, what are some of your goals? I know obviously this isn't the pinnacle, you've got a long career ahead of you. What are some goals that you see for yourself in the future since you are goal oriented as well? What's on the radar for you as well?
Yeah, so my goals now are kind of focused on how can I continue to develop my business, because even though I work in a big law firm, as a partner, you essentially kind of have your own business
Mm-hmm.
that you're developing and that you're running. So I am bringing in my own clients or growing my book of business, and that's the next thing on the horizon for me, is making sure I can be as successful as possible by bringing in new clients, meeting new people, and continuing to help my clients with their needs and keep abreast of all of the various developments that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
If I can continue to be a resource for my clients and just helpful to them, then to me that's successful, because you want to like the lawyer who you're working with. I like
Absolutely.
to like my clients.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to be able to jump on a quick call, and it doesn't have to be a big production. I can answer their questions. We can talk about our families quickly and then be on their way. Or if they want to have a longer call, happy to do that. So that is important to me, is developing that kind of relationship with my clients, that we like each other, we feel comfortable talking, and uh, I'm a helpful resource to them, not just a drain as some people might view lawyers.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and again, it's going back to that courage to putting yourself out there to build that book of business as well. That has been a theme throughout some of our conversations about how do you start developing that book of business. And again, it's letting people know that you're out there, that you're skilled, that you're an expert in this practice area, so that you can be a resource for them as well. Okay, so we're at the 40-minute mark. I wanted to hop into Erica's Fun Five just to talk with you a little bit more about, let's see, I think you alluded to it earlier about the best piece of advice that your mother or any other influential woman had given to you. And that's you can only ask, right? Any other advice that has been given to you that you'd love to impart with our listeners?
That's really my favorite piece of advice, is you can ask and the worst they can say is no. And my mom always would give a lot of good advice too, as a working mom and a working woman. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a lot of that into my career now, uh, moving forward.
Excellent. Okay. The most impactful book you have ever read is.
I was kind of between a couple of books for this one, but I think I have to say Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. It's a
Okay.
fantastic book. If people haven't read it, I highly recommend. The other one that I was looking at was The Color of Law, which basically talks about how different race based policies and laws have affected how the United States has developed and how different communities within the country have developed. So I also highly recommend that one. That one's um, a bit more thick as far as the legalese in there, but both
Mm-hmm.
are really good and interesting books.
Awesome. Thank you. And we talked about it a little bit, but a goal that you haven't accomplished yet, but you plan on reaching before you expire.
A goal that I haven't accomplished yet, but I plan on reaching. So that's hard because, I like to set goals for myself. So my next step, I think, would be to make equity. And then this goal isn't quite as tangible, but a goal outside of work is just to make sure that I'm raising good humans. And if
Mm-hmm.
my kids can grow up and be good people and successful, then I will be very happy with that.
Awesome. Life is complete if you can do that. Favorite quote and why?
Favorite quote. That is a tough one. I'm not really usually that big on quotes. Um, I don't have an answer for that one.
That's okay. All right. Let's move to your hero or shiro and why.
My hero, as I've mentioned many, many times, is definitely my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, she was a working mom throughout the time I was growing up. Both my parents worked, and she grew up in the south side of Chicago, so didn't have a ton of opportunities, but made a lot of opportunities throughout her life. So she ended up going to college and she ended up going to grad school. And both of those things were very unusual for people who grew up where she did.
That's
And
great.
just to see how she could have this determination and goals to get an education and and then become successful. She worked in education. That was always really inspiring to me. And my goal in watching her was that if I can be as successful in my career plus as good of a mom, then I will consider that a success, because she spent a lot of time with me and my siblings, but then
Mm-hmm.
also showed us that when she needs to show up for her job and for her work, it's important that she's there for those people and for those kids as well, since she worked in a school.
That's amazing. And she sounds like she was a person who had the courage as well, both personally and professionally. This was
Definitely.
this was great. Thank you so much for participating. Is there anything else, any other words of wisdom that you'd like to impart before we say goodbye and thank you and goodbye?
I want to just reiterate, especially for any younger lawyers who are listening, to make sure to put yourself out there. If you are too nervous to do it, grab a friend and take them with you. And people will never forget how kind you are to them.
Mm-hmm.
So make
Be a
sure
good
when you're
person.
right,
Right.
when you're getting out there, you want to be a nice person. And if people like you, they'll want to help you. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
a
absolutely.
win-win.
And it's a testament to really, as you're going out there and networking. It's just not a one time thing, right? You're going out there. This is the start of a relationship. I'm sure there are many people that you've built relationships with that can now refer you to other people. It's sort of this big cycle, isn't it, that keeps going around. So that 10 seconds of courage, putting yourself out there, could lead to a lifetime of relationships as well.
Yeah, and I think that's so true for the legal profession, that it's so heavy on relationships,
Hmm.
that if you want to bring in clients, it's not just that you meet someone once and all of a sudden they hire you. Sometimes
Right.
that could happen, but a lot of times it's someone that you've developed a relationship with over time that then you end up working together. So it's a lot about relationships, and don't burn bridges. Someone who might have been across the aisle from you at one point,
Hmm.
maybe they are in a position later that they can hire you for a job, and they'll remember
Absolutely.
how they interacted with you when you're on the other
Yeah,
side.
who did that quote come from? People might not remember what you did, but they can remember
How you made them
how you
feel.
made them feel. Who said that again? I can't remember. I'm gonna have to look that up. But I remember that quote as well, and it's about just being a good person as you're traveling through your career as well.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this podcast. Definitely appreciate your time. I know that time is money, so I'll let you get back to the billable hour. And thank you so much for being a part of this. And we'll talk soon. I feel there's another part two that we could do with you, but we'll talk about that at another time. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in and listening. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure that you share and subscribe to get new episodes as they come out. If you're an attorney looking for new opportunities, head to www.roundhillsearch.com to get in contact with one of our recruiting associates. And don't forget to send your career questions to podcast@roundhillsearch.com. Until next time.